Everybody. I think most of you know me. I am Tim. I am new to Burns this year at Meeting Street, Brentwood last year. To get started, I'm just going to show you a really quick song that I love to use with my kids every morning. So I'm going to just slide my chair this way to the piano. And can you still see me if I go over there?
Yes.
Yep. All right. So I'll send it to you guys this week, but it's just a very simple call and response song, but I'll just do it without the call and response, and it goes, oh, hello everybody, hello, hello everybody, hello, we're gonna sing, gonna play, gonna have a great day, hello everybody, hello. So you just do that. You can, what I like to do with that too is use like a concept for working on it for that day. If I want to do it with dynamics or with tempo or anything like that, we can build that right into your opening and good morning song. So if you pull up your Nearpod, we're going to go through and find out who everybody is by telling us your name, how long you've been with MSS, your favorite food experience this summer, and your favorite guilty snack. So I will show you. I am Tim. I've been with MSS. This is my second year with MSS, first year with Brentwood and now with Burns. My favorite food experience this summer with us being on quarantine is a donut shop called Glazed. They deliver them to your front door. That's been like amazing. My wife found it. We love it. And my favorite guilty snack, which I am going to do my best not to crunch during the session, potato chips. They're right there. So who wants to come in next?
I'll go next.
We are today focusing on how we can integrate Wit and Wisdom, the curriculum that we use, with our music lessons and with our music teaching. So before I tell you my story, I'm going to turn it over to our wonderful principal, Chad, who is going to tell us what is Wit and Wisdom. And I think Chad has a code for us as well.
Yes. I'm going to put it in the chat real quick. And so you can pull that up. All right, there's the Nearpod code. Go ahead and log in. I'll give you guys a couple minutes. All right, we good. Larry, you in? Okay, great, awesome, cool. All right, let's jump right in. I'm gonna do some cold calls, if that's okay. Laura, let's start us off. Can you read the quote by Natalie Wexler?
What if it is possible to provide all students, even the neediest, with the kind of education that enables them to enjoy learning, understand and retain what they read, become responsible citizens, and even increase test scores?
Awesome. Natalie Wexler is the author of The Knowledge Gap. Anyone read The Knowledge Gap here? Anyone? No, it's a fantastic read. Good, because we're going to read a little bit of it today. All right, jumping in. So I know everyone, I know Laura knows about Wit and Wisdom. She's had exposure for 5 years. I know Larry knows about it. Jalecia, hey, good morning. I know that, Jalecia, you're learning a little bit about it, but really this is not about Wit and Wisdom. This is about why Wit and Wisdom. And so, Larry, can you read the first session objective for me, please?
Explain why knowledge and vocabulary building are important and how they ensure equity in the classroom.
Tim, number 2.
Mine's still loading, unfortunately.
Cool. Laura, number 2.
Describe Wit and Wisdom and what makes it different.
Awesome. Then I will read the third one. Describe what Wit and Wisdom looks like in practice. We're not going to get to the third, but we're definitely going to get to the first 2. All right, so to get us going, I want us to read a little bit from not The Knowledge Gap, but it's an article that sort of Natalie based on a lot of her work in The Knowledge Gap, and it's called Elementary Education Has Gone Terribly Wrong by Natalie Wexler. I love that title, such a sexy title. Elementary Education Has Gone Terribly Wrong. Your thinking job while you read to active learning is, why is the achievement gap really a knowledge? Why is the achievement gap really a knowledge gap? And what does curriculum have to do with equity? We heard from the fabulous, fabulous MSAS team this morning in Kindred about equity and the work that we do. And so think about the achievement gap, knowledge gap, and equity, okay? So you should be able to see your article on Nearpod, and you could download that article. Go ahead and click on that, and I'm going to give us 15 minutes to read. I'm going to put on some soft jazz, and so feel free to turn off your screens. And when you're all right, go ahead and unmute. We're going to a little bit of a Socratic seminar here. I really want to hear from the four of you. And we're going to do one question at a time. Each question will be 1 minute. And I'd love the four of you could just discuss and answer the question collectively as a group. So 1 minute on the clock, first question, and whoever wants to jump in first can jump in first. But based on your reading of the article of Natalie Wexler, why is the achievement gap really a knowledge gap? 1 minute, what do you think? Go. Go ahead and unmute everyone.
I didn't realize that a big component of Common Core was a shift to nonfiction. So in the article, she said that whenever you have background knowledge of something, that your comprehension skills are going to improve, and they showed that with the baseball example.
Anyone want to build on that?
I think that, sorry, is that me?
You're great.
Okay. Understand, giving the kids the experiences and allowing them the experiences allows them to have more knowledge. And the more experiences they have, the more knowledge they have.
Awesome. Anyone else want to build on that and put 1 more minute on the clock? Tim or Jalicia?
I think for me, that's something that she mentioned about we needing to, we needed to spend more time about learning to read instead of reading to learn. That whole thing about the why is it an achievement gap versus, oh gosh, what did she say? Where'd it go? There it is. Like it said, science, history can wait, because we need to really make sure that students can read, be able to read and comprehend.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Did you say anything to add? We have about 20 seconds left.
No.
Okay. Next question, 2 minutes on the clock. What does curriculum have to do with equity? What does curriculum have to do with equity? Who wants to start us off? Not everybody at once, seriously.
Well, if what she's saying is true about how knowledge sticks to knowledge, and if you build a curriculum, like Mia Riddle had a great example once where in the LLI program that we were using before Wit Wisdom, there's this book that the kindergartners use called Sledding. And I taught the same lesson, and there were a couple of comprehension questions. Well, what happens? What do you need to wear? And they're like, I don't know, because our kids don't have snow. So it's like, most of the time. So it's like, if they don't have the background knowledge, then the comprehension's not obvious. And so if you're catering a curriculum to only certain kids, then other kids, are not going to be as successful with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Who wants to build on that?
I'd like to build. I think that, you could, the knowledge is so important, but don't just because our kids come from different places, doesn't mean that they need to be denied the knowledge of knowing something else. So I think that, you can teach that, but you better have some kind of creative way to introduce what it actually is before you expect more knowledge from them. So if there's something in the curriculum that our kids have not experienced, give them that experience first, and then teach them that.
Right. To build off what Larry said, even though it's slightly contradictory to our reading training yesterday, giving that knowledge and that pre-scaffolding before we teach the lesson. So here's what you're going to need to know as pre-knowledge before we go into this lesson, so you can really understand and retain what we're learning about.
Love all the connections you're making between like stuff that Mia has said, the article, Linda and Michael's presentation yesterday. You guys did awesome. So let me stamp a couple things that you said. Jaleesa, would you read the first core idea based on the core idea that I really want to extract from the article? Go ahead.
Okay.
Can you see it?
No, hold on.
All right, while you're pulling that up, I'm going to cold call Tim. Tim, would you read the first core idea?
The achievement gap is not a gap in skills, but rather a gap in knowledge and vocabulary.
Yeah, again, like I want to shoot myself in the foot like that. We spent so much time teaching kids like the skill around main idea when that doesn't necessarily matter as much as the knowledge building of content and science, social studies, whatever that may be, music, art, film, whatever. So yeah, awesome. Larry, would you do the next one?
Yes, teaching reading skills in isolation doesn't work. If students lack the knowledge and vocabulary to understand a reading passage, they won't be able to demonstrate their understanding of a reading skill.
Awesome, great. Jaleesa, are you up? Can you read this one?
I don't think I'm looking at the right thing. Are we looking at the elementary education has gone terribly wrong? Is this what we look?
Nope, we are go back to Nearpod and I'm moving forward on the slides. And so you should be on slide 9. It should automatically follow on your screen. Laura, do you want to read this one for me?
Shoot, where did it go? No problem. Students who come to school with more knowledge and vocabulary continue to grow their knowledge and
I
vocabulary.
do not like this.
Students who come with less fall further, students who come with less fall further and further behind unless their school provides them with a knowledge and vocabulary building curriculum. The earlier we start building students' knowledge and vocabulary, the better our chances of closing the achievement gap.
Awesome. All right, so let's talk about knowledge building. So I'm not gonna, the baseball study was referenced in the text, so I won't spend too much time on that, but the baseball study 4 different types of students: high reading ability, high knowledge of baseball; low reading ability, high knowledge of baseball; high reading ability, low knowledge of baseball; and low reading ability, low knowledge of baseball. And the results are pretty striking. So if you have kids that are high reading skills and low reading skills, but they both know a lot about baseball, look, they perform pretty much neck and neck. And that shows that knowledge matters more than the skills that kids have in reading. The knowledge matters more. And so I think the Matthew effect is just a huge indication of why knowledge building is important to our work. And then talking about the Matthew effect, have you heard of like the rich get richer and the poor get poorer? Have you heard that verse from the Bible? The Matthew effect is based on that verse of like poor readers without access to knowledge will just continue to be poor readers. So continue to be poor readers without that knowledge base, and the gap gets wider the more they grow and they age. Good readers get good because they have access to that knowledge. Poor readers continue to read poor because they don't have access to that knowledge. And so Natalie Wexler argues this: the best way to boost students' reading comprehension is to expand your knowledge and vocabulary by teaching them history, science, literature, and the arts using curriculum that guides kids through a logical sequence from one year to the next. Yes, believe it or not, gosh darn it, music's so important for our kids' knowledge building. Schools usually focus on teaching comprehension skills instead of general knowledge, even though education researchers know better. So what does this mean for Wit and Wisdom? Wit and Wisdom is a knowledge building curriculum. It is focused on deep knowledge around a central theme and then the vocabulary within there. And so I think you've seen, these are all the modules, kindergarten through 8th grade. And these are the core sort of aspects of the what Wit and Wisdom is. We chose Wit and Wisdom because we believe that providing kids with the necessary knowledge and skills, not just skills, knowledge and skills, we're gonna make better readers. And so what Tim's gonna lead you through today, y'all, is like, so I'm going to take, for example, the American West. American West, Module 2, 2nd grade. Kids are learning all about the American West. But what they have the opportunity to build more knowledge is in music. Imagine if they are exposed to songs of the American West and the content and vocabulary of those songs. Imagine how much they would learn more the deeper we can go into the knowledge. And so what we're tasked is how can you as music educators and art educators build upon the knowledge that kids are learning in Wit and Wisdom. So when they leave their Wit and Wisdom space, they come to your class and continue to go deeper into that knowledge. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Tim's going to talk. So like really you guys are helping us lead the way to build our kids' knowledge. So instead of having this surface understanding of everything, really going deep and seeing the connection between history, literature, and the arts. And so that is my spiel. I'm going to give it back over to Tim, who's going to take you through the nuts and bolts the rest of the day. And I'm jumping to another PD. Bye guys. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Love to you all.
All right, guys. So what I'm going to do is after I give you a quick rundown of what the rest of today is going to look like, we're going to take a little break and come back for the rest of our morning session. So after our break, I'm going to talk to you about the backgrounds of arts infusion and arts integration and my story about it. And we're going to talk about the 5 critical elements that we're going to be looking for when we build these lessons. And we're also going to go back to this slide that Chad put up in the Nearpod. I'll pull it out as well so you guys can have access to it. And we're going to select what we are going to tackle as far as what grade level or what module we want to look at to create that lesson. So when we come back, I'll give you that information and we'll talk through it all. I'll also present to you 2 demonstration lessons that I've already done, both in the classroom and online. And that'll give you an idea of what one of these lessons will look like. So it is almost, hello everybody. Hope we had a wonderful few minutes of break time. We are going to dive right in. All right, so this portion of our session is going to be talking about arts integration / arts infusion. What is it? What do those lessons look like? And what are some of the critical elements that we will need in an arts integrated or arts infused lesson? So on the Nearpod slide, you can see this definition, but I will read it out to you now. It's from the Kennedy Center, which says, arts integration is an approach to teaching in which students construct and demonstrate understanding through an art form. Students engage in a creative process which connects an art form and another subject area and meets evolving objectives in both. So one important thing to note is those words that are highlighted in a different color. Arts integration is an approach to teaching. It's how we do the teaching, which helps students demonstrate a better understanding. And I think that's a lot of what we're talking about this week in PD, is how we can get our students to understand and comprehend better through our art form, for our case, which is music. And music teaching and learning is always a creative process where we're making those connections and meeting those evolving objectives in both music and both in wit and wisdom. So a little bit about my story and about why we're learning about this approach to teaching today. Before joining Meeting Street Schools in 2019, I was a music teacher at Windsor Hill Arts Infused Elementary School in North Charleston, South Carolina. This is in District 2. Based on the definition from the Kennedy Center of what arts integration is, the school focused itself on providing students with an inclusive educational environment where core subjects and fine arts were integrated and infused into one homogeneous model. Students didn't just go to art, PE, music, dance, and drama on a regular basis, but they also had additional times with these separate teachers to learn arts infused lessons with their arts teacher and their homeroom teacher. So there's more to arts infusion than just going on to that daily. Like I mentioned before, there was time built into the schedule where we would teach our normal classes, and then we would also schedule different lesson times with those other classes to provide these arts infusion lessons. We would look at data, what teachers wanted to reinforce, what they wanted to make better in their lessons, what they wanted to review. Especially at test prep time, we had a lot of arts infusion lessons during end of year test prep time to really reinforce, recall, and cement those ideas and concepts in our students' brains so they would be very successful on making those connections with that content knowledge. Oftentimes in this model, there would be a co-teaching model where the arts teacher and the homeroom teacher would teach the lesson together. Sometimes it would just be the arts teacher. Other times it may just be the homeroom teacher, but both teachers were involved in that planning process. So the goals of an arts infusion lesson are to give pre-knowledge at the start of a lesson, to reinforce the lesson that has already been taught, or to teach it in parallel with the unit or at the end of the unit wrap up for a test review. So that's what we're going to look at today, is how we can build these lessons that make connections between music and between wit and wisdom. So now we are going to see 2 demonstration lessons. Let me get my screen shared here for you. And I'm going to teach this out just like I would teach it with the kids in the classroom, so you can see what it looks like. All right, share this screen and share computer sound. Oh, okay, I need a password. Can everybody see the blue and white Gullah Tradition screen? Thumbs up. Everybody's got it? Awesome. All right, so here we go. Today, kids, we're going to be learning about Gullah Tradition and the pathways to freedom.
For about a week.
The standards that we're going to cover from your classroom, we're going to recognize cultural contributions of Native American tribal groups, African groups, and immigrant groups. And we're also going to recall stories that reflect the cultural history of various regions in the United States, including stories of regional folk figures, Native American legends, and African folk tales. We're also going to be looking at you performing some, as well as singing songs with us. You're also going to be able to respond to musical ideas as a performer and a listener, working on your music analysis skills and identifying some simple musical forms. So, one of the first songs that we're going to look at today is called Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. You may have heard it sung in your home or may have heard it sung in your church, but historically the lyrics of Swing Low, Sweet Chariot refer to Ripley, a station on the Underground Railroad where fugitive slaves were welcomed. This was a town that was located at the top of the hill of the Ohio River, so it was necessary for the slaves to wait for help coming from the hill to carry me home. Now, when we take a listen to this song briefly, we're going to identify what the form of this song is. So be thinking about what musical forms we've talked about in our lessons thus far. Is it an A-B song where the first section is different from the second section? Is it an ABA song where the first and the last sections are the same and the middle is different? Is it a call and response form where there's a leader that makes a call and a responder that makes a response? So I'm going to let you hear the song, and you're going to tell me at the end, what is the musical form of this piece of music? Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. So, as you heard our song, you noticed that it was what form? That's right, it was in a call and response form. I even used different octaves on the piano to help you understand and recognize where those 2 different spots were. When we had the call, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, it was in a lower octave of the piano. And when we had the response, we went up to a higher octave of the piano to represent that the caller was being responded to by our responder. So, as we are talking about this lesson of Gullah traditions and pathways to freedom, there are some other different songs that you may recognize from our previous lessons that help us understand what the Underground Railroad was. Some of those songs include Wade in the Water. This is another song that uses that call and response form, Steal Away, and Follow the Drinking Gourd. We'll go deeper into these songs in just a little bit. But one question to ask you to remember to recall that knowledge, was the Underground Railroad really like a physical railroad? No, it wasn't. That's right. It was a pathway that was used by Harriet Tubman. It was underground, meaning it was secretive so that slaves couldn't be found when traveling from the south to the north. So now is the time for our awesome fun activity that we're going to do together, where we're going to be looking at identifying secret codes and secret messages that you learned about in your teacher. It's loading, it's loading, it's loading. It's going to load very slowly. So it's very important as this lesson loads to listen very closely to what the speaker is saying, because she is speaking in a dialect of Gullah, which is a little bit different than our typical English. So some of the words may be different, or they may be a little bit difficult to understand. So make sure you listen very closely so you can understand what is being said.
Shh, chillin', hush. Cutting and cutting nickel. They live over there on Cherokee Plantation in South Carolina. Them two want to escape the harsh life here on this plantation. You know, enslaved Africans, they were not allowed to talk to each other in the public place. So they had to find secret ways to communicate to one another. Hush, chillin'. Shh. When the African want to talk to one another and the master be wrong, they sing song while they walk. See, these songs were called walk songs, but they really were secret chord songs, because I had a hidden message in them. The overseer thought they were singing about religion, they about Jesus and all that, but they had a hidden meaning in them about escaping from this here plantation. Yes, sir. Naughty. Can you help Cutting Ned and Cutting Nickel figure out the hidden meaning of the song? Listen good now.
So in the piece, Steal Away, were the enslaved Africans secretly singing about stealing, about running away, or about going to heaven? So if you listen to those words, they're talking about...
Oh, you've been almost right. I tell you, they were secretly singing about running away. Now, the first part of the plan was to let everybody but the master know Ned and Cut Nickel was going to escape tonight. Shh. Now, they just need to know the right way for go to find freedom. That means you give them direction. Remember now, everything has to be done as secret.
And one good thing about this resource is even if the students do pick the wrong answer, it gives them the correct answer and the reasoning behind why that answer is the correct one. So let's continue.
Where did they have to go to find direction hidden? Listen good now. Follow the star, follow the star, follow the star to Bethlehem. What did they see, children? What did they see? They saw baby Jesus, the newborn king. Oh, they saw baby Jesus, the newborn king. What did they do, children? What did they do? They shouted glory.
So in this song, we're asking the question of which object had the secret directions. And the answer was the star on the quilt, which we'll see a little bit more after this activity is finished.
Honor, that mean you done choose the quilt. That is so right, you got them right with your smart self again. Oh, I'm proud of you. Now, direction was sewn on the quilt, and they hung the quilt outside on the line or the fence. Everybody know what all the hidden message that was in the quilt, except in the master and the overseer. They didn't know nothing. They just thought it been a pretty quilt. But the North Star was used to guide the people through the woods to freedom. Yeah, some of the people escaped alone, but many escaped by way of the Underground Railroad. The Underground Railroad ain't been no choo-choo train, not one that we ride on, but it was hidden pathways and safe houses that were hideouts for them enslaved Africans that was trying to get to freedom. See, they would rest at them safe houses, and then they would move on until they finally reached up north to freedom. Harriet Tubman was one of the most famous conductors of the Underground Railroad. Listen good now. You know, way down in they teach me murder, she been way down in they teach me murder, him been way down in
So Harriet Tubman was one of the most famous conductors of the Underground Railroad, and she guided
If
people.
Anna Joe see, that be the right answer. Oh, you're so smart. That gal came back over 19 times to the South and helped to free over 300 other people, including the mammy and the pappy. Yes, it sure did. And each trip was more dangerous and difficult to the other. But you know that gal ain't never lost not one passenger? Not a one. She tell him, if you decide to turn back, I'll shoot you dead before I let you go back in slavery. And not a one turned back, because all of them made it to freedom. Well, I thank you, children, for helping Cut Ned and Cut Nickel learn the secret code and how to escape from freedom. And baby, when they done skip, they had a song to sing. Oh, when I get there, they were talking about that Ohio River, Canada, and New York up north to freedom. Oh, amen, amen, amen. Hallelujah. Chillin', hush.
Don't do that. Okay. Let me go back to our, go away. Back to our presentation. There it is. All right. So in our interactive activity, we learned that many slaves could not read or write. They did not have the chance to learn to read or write. In some cases, they were not even allowed to talk to one another. So slaves had to be super clever in how they communicated with each other. They used ways to talk and tell their stories about everyday life through quilts and their own patterns sewn in the quilts. The monkey wrench pattern it displayed was a signal. It told slaves that it was time to gather the tools they needed for their journey. These tools might be real physical tools, but they also may be mental tools such as courage or awareness. And one other quilt pattern is the Drunkard's Path pattern. The Drunkard's Path pattern quilt would remind slaves to travel in a zigzag pattern as they traveled to confuse those who might be follow them. This pattern quilt may have also represented the placement of stations on different spaces of the Underground Railroad in a certain area. All right, so that is the end of that first presentation. Any questions so far that you guys have, or comments or feedback that you'd like to share before we go on to the next? You can unmute if you, yeah, I think you can unmute.
I'll just add that when I did this lesson or a similar lesson on code songs, we were discussing Follow the Drinking Gourd, and I had to kind of take a step back and talk about like what a constellation is, because I did it with third grade and I guess they hadn't learned that just yet. So I had to backtrack a little bit, but they really loved this lesson.
Awesome, thank you, Laura.
I think it was very cool.
Thank you, Jaleesa.
I love the interaction, and I think that's what kids are looking for instead of just sitting there listening to us. I like to have them interacting and being able to move around and like on a smart board. I mean, if you're doing virtually, you can't, but like smart board, just allowing them to be up there telling the story to, you know, being part of that classroom experience.
Definitely. Awesome, awesome. All right. So let's switch this screen and we will get into the second one, which is more applicable to our Wit and Wisdom curriculum. And I'll pull that up for you guys somewhere. Where'd it go? Desktop 2. Share. All right. I think you can see it now. All right, awesome. So today, teammates, we are going to be learning about some of the things that you've been working on in your Wit and Wisdom classes about the war between us in your third module of Wit and Wisdom. So just to review, you have your essential question. You have your essential question from your Wit and Wisdom text, which is, how did the Civil War impact people? And I want you to remember that the Civil War started because of uncompromising differences between the free people and the slaves over the power of the national government to prohibit slavery in the territories that had not yet become states. So as we go through this lesson today, we're going to be working on your responding skills of responding to musical ideas as a listener by analyzing music, examining the music of other genres, cultures, and time periods, this time period being music from the Civil War. And the goal of Wit and Wisdom that we're supporting with this lesson is, can you present an opinion supporting a point of view with logical reasons and ideas as appropriate to the task, purpose, or audience? So we're going to be doing some discussion based on today's lesson. So the purposes and goals of music during the Civil War. Music, including patriotic anthems, and sentimental ballads, helped us to motivate people to continue fighting while also soothing emotional wounds. Certain instruments, such as drummers and buglers, played an invaluable role in military communications, carrying officers' commands across vast, noisy battlefields. This also can connect us to our lesson back at the beginning of the year, where we talked about African drumming, where we used drum patterns as a source of communication in Africa. For most people not directly engaged with the conflict of the war, music could help bridge the distance between war and between life on the home front. So the piece of music that we're looking at today is called the Battle Hymn of the Republic. As you listen, I want you to think about what purpose the buglers in the introduction are serving, and also, what do you think is meant by the phrase, "His truth is marching on"? So as you listen, those are your two thinking questions, thinking back to what roles the musicians and instruments serve in the war time, and what is meant by the phrase, "His truth is marching on." This happens in the classroom too, even if you pre-open.
Yes.
Download YouTube videos.
It only happens when you're on the spot.
Right?
Agree.
You can do it. So while this is loading, what happens is in the beginning of the piece, the buglers have opening fanfare, and I kind of equate, the goal is for the students to equate that to what we talked about of communicating a message or sending the chief's commands or orders. And then we will go through and listen to that and talk about what his truth is marching on is meaning. Like, the truth is that we're fighting this war to get all the slaves free and get the states free in the South. And that's what I interpreted as. The students may have a different interpretation, or vice versa, whatever they might like to discuss about that. It seems as though this is not going to load for us, but that's okay, because I can always share this with you if you guys want to use it in your instruction as well. But looking back at it, when they're discussing that topic, they're not only analyzing the music from a different culture, different genre, different time period. They're presenting their opinions based on what they've learned in that lesson. So they're talking about it with their classmates, talking about it with you as a way to reinforce that concept and skill and that goal in their Wit and Wisdom lesson. So at this point, we'll come back to this main screen here. And we are going to talk about what are the 5 critical elements that we must address in our Arts Infused lesson. And Chad and I talked about this last week, and we built it in so that we could have a definitive list of what those things are to build into our lesson. So those 5 things that we want to build into our Arts Integrated or Arts Infused lesson is content knowledge, material enhancement.
Are we back on Nearpod? Sorry.
Oh, let me see. Nearpod? Yeah. Oh, no, we're not back on Nearpod just yet.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
I forgot to put it in there, but I'll type it in the chat as well. Okay. So those 5 critical elements that we want to have are content knowledge, material enhancement. Is it interactive? Are we building those connections? And the final piece is assessment. So with the content knowledge, what is it that we are going to be teaching? What is it that we're going to use from our music content to help support and build up and really reinforce that Wit and Wisdom lesson? Again, that those two, so content knowledge and material enhancement, are coming together. Then is it interactive? As music teachers, a lot of what we do is interactive. We don't have much sit and get, we maybe have that like sit and get in the first 5 minutes to give that background knowledge or to give that scaffold. But a lot of the times the rest of our lesson is really going to be that interactive piece where students are interacting with the material and the content to be able to really understand it, to really dig deep into it and really get a good grasp and hold on it. As we go through the lesson, we're building those connections. Just like in that last lesson we talked about, the connection of the music to the war. How did this part of music, or how did this instrument make that connection to what was going on in the worldview, in the music view, in that time period? And lastly, after we teach these lessons, as with any lesson we teach, we want to do some sort of assessment. Is it a discussion that we want to do where kids talk about it? Is it something that they're playing on their instruments? Is it something that they're writing about? So even as music teachers, we're, I think of it as more of a teacher of all, because while yes, we're teaching music, we're also helping students connect all those other skills, helping them with their reading skills, helping them with their opinion speaking skills, as well as their opinion writing skills. So the idea there is after we've given them the content knowledge, we've enhanced the material, they've interacted with the material, we've built and made all of those connections, then we go to our assessment piece to really make sure that the students have grasped what they learned. And the ultimate goal is at the end of this lesson, when they go back to their Wit and Wisdom class and they read those texts and they take those module assessments, for them to make all of those connections of everything they've learned in both music and both in Wit and Wisdom, and to make them a successful learner, to recall all of that knowledge, to be just great at what they're doing, being super awesome and great at what they're doing. So to be